Good day, welcome to the Victoria Electric Vehicle Association. Today we're going to work into Electric Vehicles 101. This will be for battery electric vehicles only, and we'll walk through what is happening, and we'll be talking about why electric vehicles and why now. What we're going to cover today: we're going to look at vehicle production from 2017 to 2022, get a look at what has been happening, why all this shift is happening, the mandates and the populations around the countries involved. We'll also look at new electric vehicle uptake in third quarter of 2022. We'll then look into average Canadian vehicle data, because here we're going to challenge perceptions and provide context. We'll look at the efficiency of an internal combustion engine versus an electric vehicle. We'll then do a comparison of an internal combustion engine SUV versus a battery electric vehicle SUV. We'll then look at some of the benefits, dynamic benefits of owning an electric vehicle. And we'll then look at EV charging formats and the connectors that they come with and the capabilities. And we'll answer one question: can EVs go? So here we're looking at global vehicle production for the last 5 years. You'll note that internal combustion engines peak year was in 2017, and since then it's been falling. Since then we've had 26% fewer internal combustion engine vehicles built, and EVs are growing exponentially. It took from 2012 to 2017 to have our first million per year produced, and then from 2017 to 2022 to have 10 million per year produced. Estimates now for 2023 likely see 13 to 14 million EVs produced. You also notice at the bottom there, total vehicle production over these years has gone down 12.5%. Now, mandates. Here you see a list of the top 10 economies on the planet, and you'll note that number 8 is not on there because that's Italy, which is part of number 3, the European Union. So here we have China. Their mandate is to have 80% of all new vehicles being electric by 2025. As of the end of 2022, they've produced 24% of all their new vehicles so far being electric. They've also they had a few years ago 600 different EV makers, and they're trying to whittle that down through consolidation to 300. But it's a huge market. Number 2 on the list is the United States. Their current mandate is to get to 50% electric vehicle new sales by 2030. And as of this year, they'd made 8%, the end of 2022 again. The European Union, which is 27 countries, and if you include the European Economic Area, which is 30 countries, they all have a 100% by 2035 as their mandate. Currently Norway, who's part of the EEA, first half of 2022, they produced 90% of their new vehicle sales were all electric, and they will be at 100% requirement by 2025. California is in here by itself at number 5 because it is the number 5 biggest economic area on the planet. They're planning for 100% EVs by 2035. And it's interesting, they're very influential because there are 39 million people in that state, but 17 other states follow them, with total another additional 85 million people. The United Kingdom is on there as well. India, 1.4 billion people. They're working towards being 100% by 2030. That's very aspirational. But when you remember that most of their vehicles are 2-wheel and 3-wheel, they may well make it. Canada on here as number 9. The federal requirement is 60% by 2030 and 100% by 2035. At the end of 2022, we had 8.9% of new vehicles sold in Canada being EVs. Here in British Columbia, 18%. South Korea is on here, a very odd number of 83% by 2030, but they're moving ahead quite well as EVs are now outselling diesels, which are the biggest seller in the previous biggest seller in the country. They're being outsold by EVs by 34%. Now, when you total all those economies up, you get about half of humanity in every single car producing country on the planet. With this in mind, with all these things moving, the music is already playing for the world to shift off of internal combustion engines. And you don't want to be the last country looking for a seat when the music ends. Here we have global new EV sales uptake up to the end of the third quarter of 2022. Here you see innovators from 0 to 2.5%, early adopters to 13.5%, early majority to 34%, late majority to 64%, and the laggards in the last balance of it. You see Norway is way ahead there, Sweden coming up on the slope, China, Netherlands, and Germany, and the UK all in that inflection zone between early adopters and early majority. And then Canada, the US, and Australia in the early adopter phase. So we're moving ahead rather rapidly globally. Perceptions. Average Canadian vehicle data. Average daily commute in kilometers in Canada. 80% of the population does around 18 kilometers daily. And the last 20% goes up to 40 kilometers. Daily commuting times. 30 minutes each way each day. An hour a day, 240 hours a year of people stuck in traffic. A lot of that traffic with internal combustion engines and breathing those fumes. Can't be good for you. Average speed in urban areas, 36 kilometers an hour. So when you're moving around your city with all the stopping and going, that is the average speed you end up across any urban area. Average internal combustion engine vehicle fuel consumption this year, 8.6 liters per 100 kilometers. That comes out to 27 miles per gallon. Those of you who've been around long enough to remember the various oil embargoes of the 70s knew that the goal for North American automakers was that the average of the fleet would be 30 miles per gallon. Here we are 40 years later, we still haven't got there. So obviously ICE vehicles can't get any more efficient. Average kilometers driven, 15,200 plus or minus 8%. Average vehicle price for the first quarter of 2023, this is up dramatically over the last 4 years, $61,000. You can get at least 10 different models of electric vehicles for a price less than that before incentives. Average gas price in the Victoria area in the last year, $2.32 a liter, which means the average Victorian driving the average amount of kilometers a year is spending at least $3,000 a year in fuel, in something that just gets burnt for your neighbors to breathe. Now, efficiency. Here we have the internal combustion engine. Here you have the 100% of fuel goes into it, and then between the engine friction losses, aerodynamic losses, auxiliary losses, etc., for that 1 liter that you've put into your tank, you're only getting 160 milliliters to 250 milliliters worth of that actually pushing your vehicle down the road. They are very, very inefficient. Oh, and by the way, this ignores the other 300 milliliters of fuel that was burnt in the extraction from the ground, the refining, and the transport to get that fuel to your tank in your car. Not efficient at all. Electric vehicle, on the other hand, you put in 100% of electricity into it, and you're getting almost all of it back, mainly because the the transfer from the energy from the battery to the electric motor is very efficient, and also because of regenerative braking. So the car, anytime you take your foot off the accelerator, energy is going back into the battery. It also saves you on brakes, your rotors and your pads. So whereas an electric vehicle, as it slows down, is putting energy and thus money back into your battery, think of an internal combustion engine vehicle. If you're braking slowly, imagine nickels, falling onto the road. Or if you're braking hard, imagine quarters dangling onto the road as you brake. They're just not very efficient, and they're also very expensive. Matter of efficiency, if you look here, imagine if you thought, what is the highest average fuel efficiency for a vehicle that does not have some sort of electric assist? If you thought maybe the Toyota Yaris, a small, essentially 4-passenger vehicle, minimum sort of car, minimum sort of engine, meant to be efficient, that's about 40 miles per gallon. Also not very much of the market. So here we have a graphic produced for the United States, and in here you can see all the various areas that produce energy. So all these are different markets for energy, and each one has the equivalency of an electric vehicle being driven on their grid emissions, and it comes out to a particular miles per gallon. In British Columbia, because our grid is so clean, we come out to 139 miles per gallon equivalent for an electric vehicle here in British Columbia. Now let's compare some sport utility vehicles, direct comparison. Here we have the Ford Explorer all-wheel drive. It accelerates 0 to 100 kilometers in 5.8 seconds, costs about $65,000. Over a year, driving that 15,000 kilometers, you're going to spend about $3,700. Maintenance costs here, provided by Ford, annual is going to average out to $900 a year. So if you take the purchase cost plus your fuel costs, your operational fuel costs, and your maintenance costs, that adds another $23,000. So at the end of 5 years, you've spent $88,060 to drive that vehicle. If you kept your car for another 5 years, as you should to get the use out of it, you'll have spent $111,120. This is where people don't actually look at what the total cost of operation for a vehicle is. If you only look at the purchase price, you'd think that was a great deal. But if you kept it for 10 years, you've almost spent that much money again in operations and maintenance, assuming you have no major maintenance issues. You have the annual GHG impact of 4,124 kilograms. That's from burning gasoline. Now, if you compare that to a competing vehicle, here we have the Tesla Model Y long-range all-wheel drive. 5 seconds to 100 kilometers. Costs about $5,000 more, 70 grand. Operational fuel costs per year at 12 cents a kilowatt hour, under $300. Maintenance cost, you should probably save about $100 a year just to keep tires on board, because there's a lot of fun. So if you take the 5-year cost total, the purchase price is 70 grand plus the operations and maintenance for 5 years of $1,940, you'll have spent $71,940. And if you keep it for the full 10 years, again assuming no major maintenance, and there's so very little to go wrong on an EV, you'll have spent $73,880. So if you look at that, you're saving about $37,000 over the 10-year operations. Here's where it really counts for the environment. 17 kilograms per year of GHGs based on the BC grid at 7.6 grams per kilowatt hour of power provided. Oh, and if you compare the total cabin trunk and frunk volumes, it's actually a bigger vehicle. So the advantage in all the columns here, goes to the battery electric vehicle, except for the purchase price. And as we know, when you compare the total cost of operations, that is not really significant. Benefits of EVs. Because you have that heavy battery sitting very low in the vehicle, all beneath your feet, then you have very little chance of rollover in the vehicle. In fact, the safest vehicles for rollovers on the road are all battery electric vehicles. Superior acceleration means that you have safer passing and merge events. You decide you want to be somewhere, you step on the accelerator, you're there. You're no longer waiting for the engine to rise rapidly in revolutions with noise to try and get horsepower out the back. The torque comes on as you apply it. Superior braking and traction control systems for vehicle control. Everything is electronic. You're not working through a bunch of hydraulics. Advanced driver assistance systems. The vehicle is looking out at the road ahead of you, trying to keep you in your lane. It can react when you give it permission to do so and monitor it. It'll react quicker than the human can. So the vehicle will avoid an accident. And because there isn't a huge lump of metal up front to come crashing into the cabin if you're in a frontal accident, it's also a lot safer. Right? Passive safety features are much better. Silence. There's no engine noise to compete with your enjoyment on the road. And as you know, continuous noise in any environment provides stress on people and provides fatigue. So you have better situational awareness because you can look around and hear what's happening, and less fatigue when you're on a long trip. Air quality. This is a benefit to both you and the people who live around you. No carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, sulfur dioxides, or PM 2.5, which is particularly matters getting into your lungs. None of that is coming off the vehicle. Oh, and when you're fueling it, you're not getting benzene inhalation when you're fueling. Benzene is a known carcinogen. We'll carry on with the benefits. Data stream. Many EVs have allow their owners to remotely monitor the vehicle and adjust charge states and schedule off-peak charging periods. You can also monitor multiple cameras remotely from the vehicle, and if the vehicle is in the unlikely case that it was ever stolen, you'd be able to pass the location of your vehicle to the police. As we discussed before, they're the least expensive for operations and maintenance, giving you greater funds for other priorities. So if you look at our example of the Ford Explorer and the Tesla, there was a delta there, a difference between $3,200. Actually, no, sorry, $3,400. That's extra money in your pocket to do whatever you want with. And it reduces your personal GHG and pollution footprint. Now, let's look at the charging formats and connectors. 4 main types of chargers that you'll see. I'm going to start at the far right. Level 2 charging, that is alternating current only, and that is generally what you would use to charge the vehicle from at your home. And if we go to the far left, here we have CHAdeMO, which is a Japanese format, which was initially one of the leaders coming out of the gate in the early 2000s, early 2010s. It is now being phased out, but it would give you a direct current charge up to 50 kilowatts per hour. The next format is Combined Charging Standard 1, which the top portion there, the circular part, that is for alternating current charging at your home, and then the bottom part, the oval, is for direct charging. So charging at home up to 7 kilowatts an hour, direct current charging for the most part 150 kilowatt, although there are some vehicles that will be able to charge a lot quicker than that once their systems are upgraded. And you have the Tesla charger, which is also now called the North American Charging Standard. This is good for alternating current and direct current from your home up to 11 kilowatts alternating current, and then direct current 72 kilowatts to 250 kilowatt per hour, and moving to 350 soon. Can an EV tow? Yes, it can. Here you have a Tesla Model Y towing a tent trailer. The Tesla Model Y, among the EVs, there are many EVs that can tow up to 2,500 pounds behind the vehicle. This one is 3,500 pounds. So this particular vehicle went on 7,000 kilometers through 6 United States in the West, down the US West Coast into Arizona, the Grand Canyon, and then moving around into Zion and Flagstaff, Arizona, and then back from there up through numerous other places, including Moab, and then back to Canada. During that time, primarily charged at Tesla supercharger sites, except in the RV parks, charge overnight at your site from a level 2 connector. Cost savings. So all the charging costs a little over $400, saving about $1,000 on that trip just in charging alone, compared to a similar vehicle, gas vehicle, doing that trip and buying gasoline. That's all for today, folks. Hope you found this very interesting. If you wish to contact us or join us, you can do so at the links listed here. And until next time, get charged, go EV.